All right, good evening, everybody. This is the meeting of the Curriculum and Instruction Committee. We are in Daniel Boone Middle School Library. It is 6 p.m. on March 10th, 2014. Present from the committee are Connor Kurtz, Carol Bites, Rich Martino, and new member Larry Speed. From the administration, Mrs. Torsha, Mr. Hankel, Mrs. Dinsmore, and Mrs. Rexroad, as well as a few members of the public. For public participation, we are hopeful that at the end of the meeting we can take questions if there are any. We are going to try to adhere to a pretty strict time schedule so we can there's a lot to discuss tonight. And for the sake of everybody in attendance, this meeting is being recorded. All right, so first up on the agenda is the Common Core update. Mrs. Torsha has notified me that there really is no Common Core update, but we're going to keep it on the agenda just so we're on top of it. Are there any questions about Common Core from the committees? Anything? All right. Moving on. I wanted to put the Honors 2.0 framework back on the agenda because I read a very interesting Pottstown Mercury article, which I forwarded to administrators and the committee, that they are implementing something very similar to something that I proposed back in December. And what it is, for those of you who are not on the committee or here and just would like a brief reminder of what it was, the idea was to add AP courses and take some honors courses where a new AP course would be offered and transition that over. That was pretty much what it was, and the idea was that that would add more AP classes to the Daniel Boone High School curriculum, as well as potentially save some costs that could be used to preserve other programs. And what Pottstown did, from reading the article, I have not yet spoken to their principal yet, I'm trying to set something up, they eliminated all honors classes and instead offering APs and pre-AP classes to get students ready for the APs. And that was across the board, from what I understand. And their school board thought it was a really good idea, as well as their student members of the school board. And that was an idea brought forth from the high school administration in Pottstown. So I'm going to do a little bit of research, and I invite everybody else to as well, to see what they did and if it would work here in Daniel Boone. I believe the number of AP classes they are going to offer next year, I think the number is 18 from the article. And I think that's something good that we should try to emulate if at all possible. At the very least, I think it deserves to be investigated a little bit more. The time frame for doing this, I'm thinking, would be not this school year, but the next school year. And this could be something that's wrapped into Mr. Hankel's building visions. But I do want to see a whole lot more advanced placement courses offered. And if we could save money in the process, I think we owe it to everybody to try to do that. I really only put this on here. I never expected it to take 10 minutes, but I do want us to keep that on the radar and, if possible, investigate what Pottstown did.
Done. I can speak
really?
to that.
Great.
Yeah, so can we.
Perfect.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, sure.
I spoke to both the high school principal and the superintendent of the Pottstown School District, and in speaking to both of them, their philosophy is that if there is a student who has a B- but works really hard and wishes to be maybe a doctor or want to go to school, for something along those lines, that they want to support them in taking an AP class and to eliminate any prerequisites. So what they are doing is they are virtually taking their honors classes and calling them now pre-advanced placement classes. They will not be rewriting curriculum for this pre-advanced placement class. They're going to increase the rigor a little bit, not a whole lot, and it is definitely a separate course. Pre-AP is taught by one teacher, and AP courses are taught by another teacher. Okay. That neither professional's philosophy is that either of these could be combined, that they do not see that as a possibility or a feasible way of pursuing. That the idea is to have a pre-advanced placement class set in place in hopes and to keep the expectation that the student would take AP classes the following year. That if they start out with the pre-AP class and they want to give them lots of support in getting through that class, and the only way that the student can drop the pre-AP class is by the principal's authority and making sure that his staff has done everything to be able to ensure that student's success. Again, pre-advanced placement class will be a separate class taught by a separate teacher from the AP classes. Students will not be heterogeneously grouped at all in these classes. It's two separate ones. And their philosophy is that the student's transcript will be strengthened by having pre-advanced placement on it, opposed to honors. There is no research supporting their philosophy. It's only on experience that he's had in previous school districts. They are also doing it because they have a different demographics than most schools in that they have 50% African American, 50% white, with over 72% of their students being in poverty. Okay. So they are trying to enrich their students' transcripts and helping them to be as competitive in getting accepted into schools and being able to pursue careers that they might not otherwise gone for.
Did they talk at all about adding more AP courses?
They did talk about adding more AP courses, but their AP offerings their AP enrollment is very low. They have single digit to maybe about 15 students in an AP class currently. Their thought is that this will help the student maybe make that transition to the AP course and seeing that, yes, you have to work hard, but we're going to support you.
In courses that don't offer APs, for example, 9th grade English, do they still have, the Pottstown Mercury article made it sound like they do not have honors, period.
They do not, and the only academic subject that you can have as an AP course in 9th grade is environmental science. Okay. That was their information, and I think that's wonderful. But if we want to write curriculum to include that, that's fine. But it would come with the text. It would come with an expense. 10th grade, there are only two, and that's world history and biology. AP biology for 10th grade. Okay. And yes, world history and AP biology. And again, we would be very excited about adding those to our curriculum. Administration would totally support that. But again, it would come with a cost.
Just for the edification of everybody here, what would that cost be?
Between 15 to 20 hours of writing curriculum. I don't know if I have anybody out there that would be able to tell me otherwise, but I believe with looking at the contractual alignment, I think we're paying like $37.50 right now for curriculum writing for the summer, and depending on the length of time that they would have to spend per course, that's what it would come out to.
Okay. Are there any courses where, like I know we're adding 2 new AP courses, which is great. Where does that curriculum come from?
We would have to write that.
So we are writing that, okay.
Yeah, but I had that budgeted. Yes. Okay.
All right.
But and quite honestly, in speaking to both the superintendent and the principal, I totally understand and respect their point or their philosophy in the pre-advanced placement and changing the name. I would have to do further research to see if that is really how, because my question to them was, so a college would look at a student who struggles in a pre-AP class, might get like a very low grade, a C-, I don't know if anybody gives Ds anymore, but they would recognize that as being better than getting a solid B or maybe even an A, in an honors class whose curriculum is the same, only I don't know what the rigor is, and I quite honestly I'm questioning. I'm questioning. I think they're questioning the success of their students. What they're trying to do is they're bringing the bar up, which I respect, and I think that is a great motivator for all kids. As a special educator, I always brought the bar up. I never brought it down. So I think we have kids there. I wouldn't want to scare anyone off, but I think that it's something that's very reasonable and something that we should, look into. I mean, they literally both said to me, it's a matter of a name change.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
all right.
That would be my question. How does that compare? How do other school districts treat this? How do they look at it, and how do colleges look at it too?
There seems to be.
I'm assuming they look favorably on it. I mean, am I right? It's a rookie question, I know.
No. It's I don't know of anybody who calls it pre-AP. We spoke to somebody different. We spoke to the director of curriculum at Pottstown. This individual, this lady said, all they did was change the name, make it sound better. It's an honors. The weight is the same as an honors.
That's interesting.
They haven't changed that. They presently have 9 AP courses, up from 7.
Okay.
So the 18 is maybe they're expecting to double for next year.
Okay.
The individual said,
Are they including the pre-AP as part of their doubling? Is that what they're counting, or are they
didn't-
actually, because that was a question that I need to clarify.
She wasn't exactly sure, because when
Okay.
I told her that the article said that they will have 18 courses and they say they're adding 2, she said that was incorrect, that they only have
Yeah,
9.
yeah.
And according to last year's school performance profile, it said they had 7 last year.
Right.
So she wasn't certain if that was the number of sections that they're offering, or where that number came from, or if it was just inaccurate. But they only have 9 now, so if they're adding 2, that would mean they'd have 11.
So in answer to your question, I don't know of any other school within our county, because that's how I compare ourselves to the other 17 schools within Berks County. I don't know of any other school that's calling, that has eliminated honors and using the term pre-AP or advanced placement. If schools, now the principal's experience, and he's come from 2 different schools prior to going to Pottstown,
Yeah.
and it sounds like I don't know if he's maybe done this, if this is part of his dissertation, because he is a doctor.
I know it's pretty quick for him coming to Pottstown.
Right, and it has. He's
Yeah.
only been there for, since the beginning of the school year, and I believe he came from State College area, because he said he went from 200 miles of school district to virtually 8, I guess, is what Pottstown is. And, it was something that they were using. I think it's something that might be used in the western part of our state, but
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure.
Well, that's
So-
that's very interesting, and it's something to think about.
But
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But again, they preface that they always had prerequisites.
Yeah.
And that is the big thing that's getting dropped, that now kids have this opportunity to go into this pre-AP class, which we've had prerequisites too.
I know it's something we discussed in this committee last
Right,
year. and
it's
year
very
before.
rigorous.
Yeah.
We don't want to put a student into an AP class that's not going to
Yes.
be successful.
You don't want to hurt the student by
right.
giving them. Yeah.
But if changing the term from honors to pre-AP isn't viewed negatively, in my input from both professionals is saying no, that they feel that colleges are looking at it. They see AP and they see even
If
pre-AP.
there's something
that,
that we could do even on that level that makes our students more attractive to colleges, and I think we should look into it.
And I know that's what they're doing. They're trying
Great.
to help their.
well, what we can
Their
do is we
device-
can have our counselors call around to the local colleges, Albright, Alvernia,
Yeah.
Westchester, Kutztown, so on and so forth, and ask them that question.
Yeah,
Okay, and we'll have that done for the next time.
that would be great, and even some Googling.
And also, the question I have for them is, their number of students who take AP who score 3 or better tends to be low.
Yeah,
The number of students who score 3 or better with us tends to be
High,
high.
yeah.
Are they looking at the experience minus the test, or do they want both
yeah,
together?
that would be interesting to find
And
out.
what do we want?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
I mean, if we want the experience, but are okay with the 1 and 2s, which then hurts our SPP score,
I'm interested to hear what the colleges are interested in. That's just my perspective, but
we'll get
we
it
have.
for you next time.
And again, there's no rush because we're not going to be doing this until next year, if we do anything at all. But let's.
I mean, we can change the name to pre-AP
Yeah, that's
tomorrow.
easy. Yeah.
I mean, seriously. And we do offer AP Bio. If we get we'll offer to 10th graders if we get the word go here.
I think it's a
I
wonderful
mean, I'm
opportunity.
okay with that.
All right.
But we have to look at our numbers, because I wouldn't
Yeah.
want it to. They also stated that. I know that this was part of their virtual learning, because they
Yeah.
had a lot of different things going on in there, but that classes were only running if they had the right numbers.
That could be beneficial because you take bio in 9th grade, and if you take honors biology in 9th grade, taking the AP course next year might be that would be the logical step
Right.
instead of waiting a
And
year
it's
or 2
something that we
years.
already have the curriculum written for.
Right, because we have to be careful, because all AP teachers have to be approved by the college
Yeah.
board.
All right, well, I have no objection to that. I think that would be good. I know maybe the committee members, I don't know if they know about APs as much. I know we talked about it before, but do you have any objections to offering that course to 10th graders?
Yeah, it has to go to the whole board.
That does? That's an
Well, I don't know
administrative.
that
We didn't
as a
approve it
com-
in, you're right,
as a
we didn't
committee,
approve
we
it
don't have
in
the
the,
authority to approve it.
so we can approve that. We could put it on the agenda if that's okay, if that's the
We do
recommendation
that
of
for
the
the
committee.
next meeting instead, so we can have a
Is that
time
okay?
on this.
Okay by me.
All right, like I just don't know in terms of registration.
Registration right now is, we're going to get our 3/4, 80% of our numbers by the end of next week, but
Okay.
to go back and to say to kids, hey, wait a minute, you have this
Okay.
option.
And I don't know how many will take advantage of it, but to give them that option, I think is good. But we'll put it on the agenda for next month.
That's just, what's the cost factor?
Wouldn't be an
Oh, yeah.
additional cost.
Well,
It
the
would,
books.
oh, for the.
No, the extra books.
Right.
At about $100 a pop.
Well, how many books do we have?
I have to check that. But
Well, yeah, let's check on that before ordering
the
any more.
curriculum's there, the teacher's there.
Teachers are
Yeah.
there.
So if there's no books, the cost is not an issue.
All right. Well, let's put that on the agenda for next month, and we can make a recommendation then. But now let's move on to.
Wait, I have a question about something Mary Beth said.
Okay.
If I heard you correctly, I don't know anybody that gives a D anymore.
I'm not sure if they are.
But we're going to talk about the grading scale, and if
Well,
somebody gets a 64 every test,
Then I
don't they
guess-
automatically get a D?
Then I guess they are, yeah. But I don't know if are they actually delineating, like, I know in my children's school district, there's not a D. And I don't know if they're on a 10 or an 8-point scale. I'm sorry. I just will look at their grades and I know that they're getting A's. So I don't really look that closely. But I do know that if my son wouldn't have passed one class, C- was as low as he could get until he failed. So that's where that statement came from, based upon my current experience with a child in high school.
But our grading does include a D.
I guess it does. But I think D is failing at this point. I mean, it's not
F is.
from 62 to,
Yeah, it's our grading scale. You can have low 70s and you're in the D range. And
okay.
you sit below 60.
I'm sorry, low 70s would be, but
Yeah, 5.
Below
low
64.
70s would be a
64
C.
below is
and
fail.
But that's all I'm asking
Yeah.
is the numerical test scores develop the grade. It's not like Mr. Speak could get all 66s and the teacher decide I'll give him a C just to be nice.
no,
Okay.
Not at
no.
all.
But a
Not that
60,
you would
but a
get
66
66.
based upon a grade, the way that it is still
A D.
here. Okay.
A D.
And if we change it tonight, it'd be all 60s would be.
Yes, and
Yeah.
then we'd be good.
And that's something we can talk about.
Right.
Item 5. All
I don't
right.
know if is a D an acceptable grade in I mean, it's not acceptable, obviously, but
Yeah,
is it
but-
something that you can earn? I mean,
I don't know. Maybe it depends on the class, but are you talking about AP specifically?
Yeah,
You can fail an AP course.
I know you
but you
can
could fail it
but-
while simultaneously getting a 5.
I
I mean,
wasn't
yeah.
sure, because I was thinking that the expectation is if you're not getting,
Conceivably, you could get a 5 on the test and get college credit and fail the high school
okay,
course.
yeah, that
Get
would be true. yes.
Transcript break.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that's ever happened, but well, I'm sure it has. But all right,
I just had a quick question.
Go
about
ahead.
that, too. So the new classes include management information systems, entrepreneurship, robotics, engineering, exploration, organic chemistry, anatomy, physiology, astronomy, meteorology, history and math, algebra 2, geology, zoology, and others. Are they the APs that they're offering?
no.
Those are actually, if you don't mind, because I talked to the curriculum supervisor today. She said that those are all courses that they are offering to the students. However, they are only going to actually run the number of courses that they can actually support. So, for instance, their goal is to come up with, as Mr. Henkel and I have talked with you about, high interest courses, trying to have more things that more kids would be interested in than rather just your English 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Mm-hmm.
So they're offering all of these, and then they're seeing the interest, and then they're going to actually run the number that they can support with the teachers that they have. So not all of those, and if you read a little bit farther, it says that not all of those will actually.
I was worried about
Pass.
you, and then he's telling me.
Okay.
So they're kind of throwing those out there as here's some things we'd like to offer you. What are you interested in?
And that
the
does
top
compare-
3, for instance, get to go.
So there seems to be a disconnect in a lot of these ideas from what's actually happening and then what's portrayed. So, okay.
So that ties into with division. I'm just wondering, before we go adding more AP, I'm sort of interested in making sure the kids who aren't in the AP and honors track have some exposure to other things like that too.
Well,
Is that in the vision that you?
oh my goodness gracious, yes. I mean, it's like,
Okay, well, we can visit that.
Yeah,
another
we have a lot of
time.
time to talk about this. I want to move on because we're at 18 minutes. To item 4, optimizing study halls at DBHS. This has been something that some members of the board have been very interested in. Currently, we offer, actually, if maybe Mr. Hankel or Mrs. Torres can explain how it currently is. I don't want to misrepresent anything, so that might be better.
Well, I believe over the years with reductions in staff and not having the class, like, let's use driver ed or another piece of...
You lost 30% of your business offerings.
Right. So students have to be sitting somewhere. And if they're not electing to take another elective, they're going into study hall.
Yes.
Not the most optimal choice, and we agree. And so in knowing that we're not really happy with that and looking within what we can do without it being cost, so that it can be cost neutral, we're believing that we could, the a la carte elective idea, which we talked about the last time, would be one of the areas to where we would be pulling students out of study halls and giving them other electives. I recommend it to Mr. Henkel, and I don't know if he had discussion with Mrs. Rexroad or not, but I talked about we should probably be looking at Keystone prep classes for the literature, the biology, the math, because in the next 4 years, this incoming group of 9th graders are going to have to demonstrate proficiency in order to graduate. And then if not, then we come up with an alternative plan. If they're not proficient, then we have to come up with an alternative plan. But I believe that we could be pushing students to go into those classes if, when they've taken the test and they're not at the proficient rate, then you're tracked into there. That's where you're going to have to go. So we talked about that, which would be then those teachers that would be maybe covering a study hall that are certified in English, science, biology, Algebra 1, etc. Also talked about, and I'm not sure that we do this right now or not, but PSAT and SAT prep. That I believe that those would be very worthwhile areas for us to be pushing. If a student is interested in college and they want to work hard on getting better at the SAT, PSAT, then we push them into that class utilizing the expertise of the teachers. What else was I? Oh, I did do research on the information that I brought up about the senior students going out and having an experience. I'm all over the place with my thoughts, so I'm now losing the name of what it is. But I have information with regards to it's kind of like an internship for seniors to be working in a field or with somebody that they want to, and it's a senior only, and it's worth a 0.5 credit, so we could get seniors out of the building. Certainly they wouldn't have to be sitting in study halls. And I thought I had another idea, but anyway, we are looking at the study halls very seriously, very closely, and making sure that we're optimizing student access to good things that are going to help them.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
And Mr. Hankel had told me this before, but we're saying that because of staff reductions, we've cut courses, so now we have study halls. But we have staff in the study halls. So how did staff reductions cause the study halls to come about?
Because the students aren't in a business class now, which they were sitting in. That was the reduction in the staff. What was the class that we lost within business?
Okay, but we still have staff, so why aren't they teaching business instead of...
Because they're not qualified. They're not certified. You have to be highly qualified in each of the areas.
And the majority of those electives, those teachers are teaching a full load, so the study halls are generally run by your, quote, core teachers who are teaching 6 sections, and then 1 is the duty. A lot of the other teachers are teaching 7, like the family and consumer science, tech people.
I mean, very frankly, I think that's a total waste of a highly skilled, highly paid teacher to have them sitting in front of the class.
And we're not disagreeing with you. We're saying that we're looking at it and we're going to be remediating that and putting in place worthwhile classes for these kids to have.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
The other thing that has been asked of me, if I understand correctly, seniors who have enough credits that have study halls, if they don't want to take another class, why can't they go home?
They can't. Well, they can't. They have to have senior release. Technically, they need to have a job or something to go to. But am I going to check and call all the time? No. If we get the okay that if they have completed their requirements and the board's okay with just saying you can go home even if you want to watch TV all afternoon.
That's what I'm asking. Well, not just the board okay, the parents being okay.
Right, they have to sign off on it. The parent, each individual parent must sign off on it.
But I have to check and see if there's a state requirement as well. I'm not sure the code for...
We do have senior release.
I know that there's senior release, and that's for working, and that you need to have notification from an employer stating that, Johnny's working from 2 to whatever. But I don't know if we can just carte blanchely allow students to leave, and I think then that becomes... honestly, some type of liability on us.
Well, we'll have to check.
Yeah.
We should check with Brian before
So-
that. But as Mr. Supers, I shouldn't be referring him to as Brian. The other thing I wanted to say, I would prefer, if we have classes available for students to take, I'd rather encourage them to take those classes than just go home. I don't know what the answer to that is. Maybe adding more credits requirement to graduate. I don't know. And we'll talk about that later in the meeting. But I'd rather... These kids are going to school, and good money is being spent to give them a quality education, and I'd like them to take advantage of that. I'd rather not say, just go on home if you get the bare minimum.
I agree with you, but if I heard Mr. Hankel correctly, you can't make them take another course. Is
Well,
that
unless we
right?
raise...
Some districts require that each year of the first 3 years, they must have 6.5 credits.
Yeah, but I'm talking specifically seniors who have earned enough credits to graduate.
You cannot, unless...
What we would have to do is front load the required places, and then they wouldn't be able to take the other electives as early, and they would have to take them later, which would put them in classes as a senior instead of study
See, to
hall.
me, that would be much more cost effective.
Right, and that's what I'm proposing with the Keystone Prep classes, with the staff that we have already in place.
Yeah, if you're teaching something in the study hall, like something like that,
Well, and I wouldn't call it study
That's
hall
not
at all.
study hall.
No,
Yeah,
I would be
exactly.
calling it a prep
That's a class.
Sure,
Right.
great.
And honestly, they could be stuck in that class for 4 years because we're not going to let them go through
Yeah.
until, we either get proficient, or by the time they're a senior, then they're going to be working on an alternative plan that they're going to have to submit for us to evaluate for them to be able to be considered, proficient to move on.
If I could add, I know, Mr. Martino, last time you had talked about the possibility of support staff monitoring.
I was just about to get to that.
I had a phone call today from Brett Cooper. Brett Cooper happens to be the principal of Pottstown High School. We had a nice, very long chat. And he explained the situation regarding how Boyertown does it. And the first thing he wanted to say was, if for Boyertown, they do not look at it as a cost savings. They did not look at it as cost savings because it was not a cost savings. But what they do is they have aides or support staff monitor study halls. Students who are not performing academically are required to go to tutoring. Required. So your teacher may only teach, for example, Megan may teach 6 math classes. Her 7th, quote, teaching class is math tutoring. All right? So a student who has a study hall at a certain time, if Tom Hankel is that student's math teacher and that student is underperforming, I write that student a pass for the week and say, you are to go to math tutoring. So then they would go to Megan, and if I have geometry, it doesn't matter what subject area,
I understand.
they go there.
And I'd be much more comfortable with that than a study hall.
That is
Because that's education.
that is required by them. Now, it was a fight in the beginning from both students and parents, okay, to require that, but they, it's weaned its way through.
They work through it.
Yeah.
They worked it through and understood, and that's the way it is. The other students who are doing well academically, who go to study hall, that's their free time. They can do kind of whatever.
So it's not really study hall, though.
It's-
But
it's
who's
called-
monitoring them?
They are monitored by, that area is monitored by aides because the behavior tends to be good because the kids are doing well academically. That's the way that works.
Go ahead.
I have an idea.
And now,
But you would have to hire additional aides. 'Cause
they
what
have
if-
5 aides. They have 5 aides in the building, plus an intervention specialist. Now, that one intervention specialist is the aide who sets up the whole schedule for the kids. It's not done individually. Teacher Tom Hankel writes down Mr. Martino to see math tutor during study hall. hands it to this aide, who then completes the weekly grid.
At any one time, how many teachers would you say are running a study hall? 3, 4?
Depends on the size. For example, I walked into Austin Peterson this morning. He was the only one for at least 60 kids. Sometimes you have 2 for 100 kids in the cafeteria.
I remember looking at the schedule, though, there are some where you have 10th grade and 9th grade study halls and 12th grade and 11th grade study halls.
Right.
You don't, so there has to be more than one study hall happening.
Sure.
Right.
So I'm asking that. How many study halls are happening generally third period?
I have to.
Okay.
I can.
Well, the reason I bring it up, I don't need a specific answer right now, but I bring it up because what if we combine something that Rich was saying earlier? You have a large study hall in the auditorium with 1 or 2 teachers, and then you take the others.
Which is just what I just heard you say you actually have in some cases.
Well,
Some, yeah, but then if they can get it down, they take the individuals to their class.
But what if you take those teachers and who are not watching that large study hall and they can do the tutoring? So you're not hiring aides, you're taking the students with the good behavior, like you said earlier, who are in study hall, who have this free time, you put them in a large group, maybe the auditorium, and you take those leftover teachers and you do tutoring.
The teachers would have to be highly qualified in the subject areas the students need support on. So say, for instance, they need support in trig and the teacher is a history teacher. That's going to be a little bit of a conflict.
How do they do it in...
Aides.
But they have... So
Now, who does the tutoring at Boyertown is what he's asking.
The teachers who are highly qualified in that subject area. So period 3, day 2, you may have a history teacher tutoring, a math teacher on schedule for tutoring, an English teacher on tutoring at 3 different locations.
Well, then
So it would complicate your scheduling, but they were able to do it.
It complicates it in the fact that the person who does the overall grid, that's not a problem. It's not the schedule because you still have those, the open blocks of, quote, study hall are there. Okay, you see what I'm saying? That doesn't change the schedule at all.
No, but I mean, your highly qualified algebra teacher would have to be available that period in order to do the tutoring.
But you do it backwards. You schedule the classes, and then you see where the holes are in the teacher's schedule.
Well, you can plug the holes then, and the students who, maybe if that Algebra 1 teacher is on study hall duty and in the big study hall, they can't tutor that day, but the next day it's another teacher doing it, and you go through the cycle. So every day you wouldn't have tutoring with that specific teacher, but maybe 2 days a week, 3 days a week.
You might want to for consistency. It would be difficult to go to a different teacher each day.
Well, I don't know if it would be difficult for a student who has a 9-period schedule. I mean,
No, I mean learning-wise. I mean, if you go to one person, they're teaching one way, and then you go to the other teacher, and they have a little
Well,
bit...
I'm not saying different teachers.
Okay,
I'm saying
that's
the
what
same
I...
teacher.
Oh, okay, I was
like instead of going Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
I
Thursday,
thought you were
Friday.
lining up the teachers.
No.
Okay.
You go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, depending on availability of the teacher.
Yeah. It wouldn't matter what period of the day it
But
was, right?
The key is,
We could figure out the
if
scheduling.
you set it up, and I like Boyertown's approach for the students who are not academically proficient, and whatever that mark is, D or F, maybe something like that, it's rarely a one-day thing.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying one day.
If
It
those
would be
kids are going
recurring.
in there for...
Well, and we
a
could
week
even
at a
take it
time.
further, and any of the ineligible athletes that are ineligible for a week, you have to go to tutoring for the week.
And the Berks Online Learning.
Right, and Berks Online Learning students who are not attending and, are costing us, money and just not showing up, we could be implementing that part there too and getting them more
See,
successful.
I just hate seeing time, talent, and money all being wasted, and that's what I consider study halls.
Oh, we don't disagree.
So I think that, again, we were talking about this. If you can take those, let's say you have 5 teachers at one time doing a study hall, that might be too many, it might be too little, but you take 2 of those teachers, you put them in the large group study hall, then the other 3, and you cycle through so you have somebody competent in each field doing the tutoring. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep,
Do you think
absolutely.
that's feasible?
I do.
Great.
Yes. Yep.
If
Now,
we can...
I got to ask a question.
All right.
The large group study halls, which you said are basically free time.
In Boyertown, yes.
Well, if we would use that model, why would we use teachers and not aides like they're doing?
We don't have to, but I'm just saying that would be more cost effective. You wouldn't be hiring aides when we already have the teachers. If we want to hire aides, that's something we
But
can
if you
consider.
hire aides in lieu of the teachers,
Then that would save money. Yeah.
You wouldn't necessarily be able to reduce a teacher because they don't have a class to teach one period out of the day. Because within their schedule, it may not work that they don't teach every day, first period or 8th or 9th period. So you would essentially be saying, okay, I need you 1 to 4. I don't need you for 5, but I'm going to need you,
No, I think there's a lot of questions to be answered.
Yeah.
So the real question is, this is already March. How long would it take to put something comprehensive together that I don't want to say mirrors that, but models off of it?
Well, you have to tell me one thing: are you going to hire aides? If you hire aides, it can be done real quickly. It can be put into place for next year. The thing is, Boyertown does it to maximize academic achievement.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal: to have as many teachers available to tutor the different subject areas. That's why they hire aides, to free up those teachers, so that we're not having just a student who has difficulty in this one versus this one and this one. They have options to go. That's the reason they did it this way. So
But-
you have to give me that direction of,
well, yeah.
I'd like to see utilizing the teachers we have now handling study halls. Would you really need aides? I mean, if you spell this all out,
it would be a watered down version of this, but there would be a version of this.
that's what I'd like
Yeah.
to see. And then if we had to go to the full board and say we could make this even better by hiring X number of aides,
That'll be a discussion for the board.
that would be a discussion for the board.
I think,
But I'd like to see a version of this.
yeah,
It could be, it could be a watered down version. It has to be also, the board has to support the idea that students are required to go to the tutor
Absolutely,
if they are academically deficient.
Yeah, I mean, the argument in my mind would be to a parent, why would you want your child sitting in a room doing nothing as opposed to learning what they're
Learning
supposed
something.
to be?
Case in point, when I was the principal here, we instituted the remedial reading classes. If you were below basic on PSSA, you took an extra reading class every day. If you were at basic, you took it as an encore twice a cycle. And that's how students were put in. I had probably every September, a minimum 20 phone calls from parents. I don't want my child in there. Well, your child's below basic or basic, they're not proficient according to the state. I don't care. You're missing this.
Well, you've
And that's
got
why we needed to,
you got 4/9 of the board sitting here, and I haven't heard any backlash against education. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll back you on that 100%. That's,
I
to me,
mean,
that's
it has, I did say.
I'm sure it happens. I'm sure you got some heat from it, but in my mind, that's a very short, very succinct argument for, that you can't shoot down.
can we please see, I want to keep this moving and we like where this is going, so if we can just get some more of a plan, actually let's have a plan for the next meeting. I'd like to get this in place for next school year because it is wasteful having the status quo, in my opinion at least. So if we could talk about this at the next meeting, that would be great, and have a plan in front of us. I want to move on to the grading scale. We discussed this at the last meeting, and the idea is to change, maybe Mrs. Schwarzer, would you like to explain what the proposal was, because it's really from the administration. It was actually from a member of the public who's actually a teacher.
We're looking to change from an 8-point grading system to a 10-point, which would more or less equal the playing field for our students in comparison to other students that are coming from the same type of grading, so that their 92 would be looked at as an A opposed to a B.
Yeah.
So that's what we're really just proposing and saying, go from 90 to 100 to be an A, 80 to 89.
You're not changing the actual rigor of the courses.
No, the
You're just
rigor is not changing at all. It's just giving the students an opportunity that, might not be a great test taker, and so therefore their test grades come out to a 91, but all of their other work and their ethic, shows that they are that A student.
And the reason we want to do this or consider doing it is because other school districts around our area, around Pennsylvania, around the country, use a 10-point model. So you
Right.
could have a student from Exeter who has a 90,
more.
and they have an A.
Right.
You can have a student from Daniel Boone who has a 91,
And
but they have a B.
Right.
And the theory is that when it comes to scholarships and college admission, our students are at a disadvantage compared to those Exeter students because
Making them a
of
little
letter
bit more
grade.
competitive. Tom, do you have something else to add?
No, that's basically it. It came down to the idea, it was originally changed prior to me arriving in Boone 10 years ago. People thought, well, if you up the grading scale, you would up the rigor. Well, it doesn't matter. The rigor is the rigor.
Yeah.
And some scholarships state, if you have a B or better, you may apply for the scholarship. Well, some students are able to apply to an 81, our students are not.
Yeah.
Simple as that. The belief is that colleges kind of take our scale and the 10-point scale and put them together.
That doesn't always happen.
Realistically, that occurs at 50 to 60% of the time. So that's where we are. Would like to just change it to get to a 10-point scale.
This is something that I was prepared to vote on last month. We waited for Mrs. Bites because she wanted some time to think it over. Which is fine, but I would like to move this along, if possible. There's no objection because we have sat on it now for a month. Mr. Speed being a new member, though, if he wants some time to think about it.
Is there any objection within our staff, generally speaking? Our admins, our teachers, is everybody sort of of the same thinking with that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a good thing, right? I mean,
Yes.
I don't want to state anything obvious here, but I don't understand why we.
This actually was suggested by a teacher who was a resident.
A parent.
And a parent. That's who brought it to the board's attention.
As her child is applying for going through the application process, it's just made her more acutely aware that, we're at a little bit of a disadvantage because we have the bar up a little bit higher for RA students.
Now, she wanted retroactive, and we can't do
Yeah,
that.
we'll have to put it in place for next week.
The recommendation that if we vote on this tonight, it would be added to the end of the month's agenda, and it would read, motion to set the DBASD grading scale as follows, effective the start of the 2014-2015 school year. A, 90 to 100, B, 80 to 90, C, 70 to 80, D, 60 to 70, F, below 60. That would be what we'd be voting on as a board.
Just to give you a real quick idea, I surveyed numerous out of Chester, Montgomery, Delaware, and Berks County. Delaware County, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 districts I surveyed, just looked at, 5 out of 6 are 10 point. 7 out of 10 in Chester County, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 8. Montgomery County, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 8 in Berks County. I didn't get them all, but I just kind of got a sample.
Thank you.
I'd like to, do I hear a motion to recommend this to the full board?
I motion.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Kurtz, yes. Mrs. Bites?
Yes.
Mr. Martino?
Yes.
Mr. Speed?
Yes.
Okay, we recommend that to the full board. Moving on to item 6.
That one's real quick. It's more or less there's some dumb surveys that come across the office that just need to be looked at more thoroughly, and I will bring to the curriculum committee for review before we put it out there to the students.
The recommendation that, and I understood we had a conversation about this, and there were some members of the committee who wanted to put it in writing and have the board vote on it.
Okay.
Mrs. Bites brought up the PAYS survey, which asked some intrusive questions.
They were, and they were trying to get some valuable information.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
no matter how, no matter what their reasoning is for it, it should be if this is the venue that you want for it to come across, and then we go and say.
My big objection, I don't want to cut you off, sorry for running.
Yes, you do.
No, my big objection is if we don't have to do it and it's not benefiting education, then why are we spending time doing it?
And I
I
agree.
like the default to be no,
Yes.
and then if you see something that
then you bring it to the board and we approve it.
Absolutely.
And I want anything coming from the state to either be mandated and funded or not done.
And then we,
Exactly.
so I think that's what we should do.
You mean like Keystone testing and
well,
Duly noted.
Yeah. The language that that I'm proposing, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping around, but we have a lot to do here. Motion to direct the administration to not participate in any non-mandated state surveys, examinations, or evaluations without board approval. That is the language. Is that okay?
You're fine. I'm good
right.
with it. Yep.
Is
You can scrutinize all surveys. I'm happy to send them
Only
on
if you
your
wanna
way.
do 'em.
Oh, only if I'm really passionate about them, I'll let you know.
All right.
Okay? You know how I can be.
You move that?
I move it.
All right.
Second.
All right. Mr. Kurtz, aye. Mrs. Bites?
Yes.
Mr. Martino?
Yes.
Mr. Speed?
Yes.
All right, that's been recommended to the board, and those are our 2 recommendations for tonight, so we're sending those along. Great. Next up is item 7, 5th grade to DBMS. This is Mrs. Torsha.
And it's not happening. Okay, let's go. Move on to the next
Well,
one.
are there any questions about that?
Any reason why?
Well, after doing a further analysis, it would be more costly to move the 5th grade to the middle school. than to keep them currently where they're at. There would be reconfiguration of the entire building in order to be able to house the 11 classrooms or 12 classrooms. We would really be removing current technology labs that are in place for 6th through 8th grade that are used heavily because of our PSSA prep time that we do in labs. Our reading is tied to lab work. It's a lot of electronic-based type of curriculum, and we would have to virtually get laptop carts, which would be in excess of about $20,000, or not exceed $20,000, but would be about $20,000 per cart.
Wow.
Because we'd need a 30 to 35 computer cart to go along with it. So with that, and then looking at the whole Encore staff of who would be coming up to support 5th grade with regards to gym, art, music, etc., we would have to tap into the current staff, but because middle school is on a 6-day cycle, elementary is on a 5-day cycle, we would have had to revamp the whole cycle thing, and elementary school starts at 8:30, middle school starts at 9 or 7:30. How do I utilize that staff with that hour differential? So then we were looking at having to increase a lot of time with the Encore staff to be able to bring the art, music, gym, etc. to this level.
So by not doing it, we have that space in our back pocket for future growth?
We do, yeah.
That's worth noting.
It just wouldn't, right now with whatever else, whatever other direction we take, we don't need to move 5th grade to school.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, thank you for bringing that, for conceiving that idea, and it really was.
And I mean, if we had to really do it, we would,
Find a way.
work our way through. So.
All right. Any thoughts on that? Any questions? If not, we'll move along to item 8, PE credit proposal for athletics and band.
And that's pretty much, we went to the state and asked, can we do this? And they said no. And then we said, but other schools do it. And they said, and the minute we get one complaint, they're going to be told that they can't do it either. So rather than start a practice that we would be virtually told that we couldn't do, and it's not, I don't know what the cost effectiveness of it really would have been. We're just not going to pursue that.
You'd still be having the phys ed class.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't have those kids in it.
Exactly.
Regardless, I know this has been something that's been tossed around for a few years, actually, and I'm glad we have some definitive answers on it. Wow, we're pretty ahead of schedule now. It's nice. Any questions on that from the committee?
Don't jinx yourself.
Good point. Then finally, item 9, DBHS graduation credit requirements. This is something that we put on this agenda after we only approved last month the courses that would be offered at the high school. We didn't approve the graduation credits because we wanted to discuss that and think about it. And I don't know when they need those, but students are registering, and if they're not going to meet the graduation credit requirement, they need to know before starting classes. Right off the bat, what are our thoughts on the graduation credit requirements? Do you want some background? Maybe that would be helpful.
Yes.
Mr. Hankel.
We're at 24.6. With the reduction of career ed and driver ed, take those credits out, you drop to 23.95. And how can we adjust it? We can up the elective credit requirements to 0.5, and you're back up virtually to the original 24.65. So you're at like 24 point, whatever it is, 4.5, I guess. So you just up the requirements in electives. Yeah. And that would just basically a wash where we are now. Okay. So, and it was coming from the elective requirements. Now, where can we pick up those elective requirements? I am not sure. Last meeting, when we talked about kind of starting possibility of those couple a la carte classes, I don't know if it was a go-ahead and not go-ahead. I'm not quite sure if it was the 2 half-credit courses in social studies and possibly 2 half credits in English that would not impact the budget. We can pick up the electives right there because they would be 0.5 credits. I know social studies is jumping into to actually start those, to give it a shot. You know, they have a whole litany of classes, but they'd like to start like current events and something else.
Or if you're ready to start that, I think you should. The board would need to vote on that, considering we already approved the course selection guide.
Right, and would just be and add it, and then you raise it up to 24.45. I think that's it. Whatever, what's 23.95 plus 24.45?
If we raise it by more than that, how does that affect study halls? Just
Well, we'll decrease it.
it would decrease study halls.
You'd have to have the students take more electives.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Why those two? Can we add some business classes back here? We're going to add some electives.
We don't have the
Why
staff. We don't have the staff to, I mean, I
Even
think
some
those,
basic
they're
introductory?
teaching
Well-
7, they're already teaching 7 classes, correct? With one, we have 9 periods, 7 classes, they get prep and now duty-free lunch, so that, you're at their 9.
So how many
What
business
was the
teachers
class you
are
and I
talking
were
about?
discussing? Personal finance or something like that? That you said used to be
Yeah.
given but was eliminated?
And we still have personal
Technology.
finance. We still have that.
You still have it?
We still have personal
Oh,
finance,
okay.
yes.
We want to,
Know what?
It's called something else. Go ahead.
we would like to look closely at the course offerings in that department to bring them more up to date with what's going on in 2014.
Part of what we were discussing is as much as we'd like to see everybody go to college, and everybody should in this day and age to get any kind of reasonable employment, but not everybody's going
Right.
to.
Right.
And personal money management, especially to somebody that's making less money, becomes, that's important.
For everybody, it's important.
Yeah, but the less money you have, the more important it is. And that's preparing kids for life as opposed to preparing them for college. And I don't know what we teach.
I don't want to disparage anything, but looking over in the last year and 3/4 I've been there, I took keyboarding in 1972. We teach keyboarding. I have kids in 7-year-olds who could type faster two-thumbed than I can ever. Is
Right.
keyboarding
Right.
a real necessity?
Not in the high school, because
I
they're
mean,
getting it in the
so-
elementary and the middle.
Would I get seniors or juniors if I offered entrepreneurship?
Right.
Or franchising?
Right.
Or personal money management? Or
Yeah.
something along that lines that I would think would be high interest levels?
Is it too late to make those changes?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think teachers are ready to make changes of high interest level classes. That's just talking to the
I
staff.
wish those were in the
But
course
we're going
selection.
back to
We
what
approved that.
Andrew was
Well,
saying
we can add
about,
it,
are
we
they
can do an
qualified?
addendum.
Yeah.
We can
Your business
resubmit,
teacher
to you,
Yes.
and
I mean, for the
that's not
courses you're
fun.
talking about
Proceeding, we have to vote on
offering,
that.
do we have qualified
Yeah, the
people?
board would have to vote on that.
Right, well, and we'll bring it.
You
I
have
mean,
time to register.
well, he could,
Say, just
I think you
don't
could
offer
change,
the
right,
classes that you have enough interest in, like
Hmm?
Watertown said.
right.
Throw
I
them all
think
out
that
there.
we could make arrangements in the fall when kids are looking at it, or just saying, oh, well, this one's dropped, here's your other choices.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Okay.
It's not a problem
Yeah.
because the AP, with AP European history or the things like
Yeah.
that, we make some adjustments. We'll just go back and say, hey, listen,
All right.
you have this option. Let's.
Well, can you bring back then a revised course selection book with these additions that you're ready to implement, that we can do, that would not raise costs, that you think would be good for students? You can include the AP Bio for 10th graders in those revisions, something that we could take to the board to approve.
Can
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Rather than bring it back to the next meeting, which is,
Next month, yeah.
Do it by the end of the month.
why can't he email the Curriculum and Instruction Committee? I mean, you've got 4 members here.
I'm fine with that.
The sooner,
okay
the
with it.
you
sooner
give me the
you
okay?
get it
then you'll have
done.
it.
All right.
Well, we're giving you the okay to look at it. I mean, because if you're offering courses that you're telling us aren't what we should be offering,
Don't make sense.
Yeah.
I'd rather.
That's
look
just
at-
my personal opinion. I don't think keep
Well,
going
and you're not
high
cha-
school level.
Well, yeah.
and you're talking about it being within the graduation requirement guidelines, so it's not like we're costing more money, and it's not like we're doing it to save money. You're doing it for the education.
Right.
The only thing that's required is, as I said, as Mrs. Torch said, was be the curriculum writing, the 15 hours or so they're required in the
And
summertime.
materials. I think beyond just the course selection book, you'd want a course proposal to talk about what the material costs are.
Could
for
the
teaching.
curriculum, I know there's a movement now in some Danube high school courses and college courses where there's a lot of online material brought into it. For some of these courses, do you need a textbook, or can it be developed by the curriculum
And
group?
we could look at that. We can
Yeah.
certainly investigate that and
Well, social studies / current events,
Yeah.
of course, like that.
right.
I would say that would be virtually all of one.
Yeah.
The only other thing I'd like you to look at when you do this is the number of students that would participate. I mean, you know how I feel about having a class for 6 kids. I don't want to do that. I can't afford it.
I'm kind of under the impression that under 10 is a no-go.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I'm kind of under that impression.
So you'll do sign-ups, if you don't have enough, you wouldn't.
But then again, if these courses are more relevant to today's world, you think you'd have more interest in them
Yeah,
too.
they could be filling up.
You think you'd be filling them up? Yeah, I
Right.
would agree.
I'm telling, when I'm meeting with the staffs and I'm meeting with individual teachers, I'm saying, you have to look at themselves like a business. You must start marketing your subject area. That's fact. You have to market your subject area.
It's a financial thing. We're not using any lights anymore.
For the sake of the minute, it's dark in here.
To do austerity.
People listen. I want to mention here. The subject here is DBHS graduation credit requirement. Do we want to? What do we want to do with the actual number of credits required? Do we want to keep? I don't know how long we have to wait. Do we want to raise it? Do we want to raise it back up to where it would be? Do we want to raise it above that, which would have the effect of diminishing study halls?
I think we need to raise it back to at least where it was, and I'm not opposed to raising it higher, especially
Especially with the study halls.
that almost sounds cost neutral if you're having study halls now, so you still have the personnel.
Yeah. Half of me wonders how much we'd have to raise it to eliminate study halls.
Can we, let's take a look at it, adding by 0.5 to get it back up to basically what it was, get the effect of that, get it to you, and the effect of what it would have if you raised it another 0.5.
All right.
Or 0.33.
Is
Okay?
that something the committee's fine with?
Yes, you're looking at keeping it under 25.
I'm just taking a look at each step
Yeah.
up the ladder.
Okay.
And the effect that would be regarding scheduling
All right.
classes, things like
And
that.
for the record, service learning was the other course that I was talking about for the seniors.
Yes, would you like to, we have 4 minutes, if you'd like to briefly mention, I do want to see if there's any public comment.
Okay, no, we can talk about it later, but that
Okay.
was what I was trying to remember.
All right.
What about
Your
virtual
picture's not
classes?
until 7:20.
I know, but you said we have to be done by
What about-
7.
Karen, what about consideration of the virtual
We'll talk
classes?
about that Connor and I thought that would be a
Okay.
good agenda item for next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through the compass.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. And do you still offer this business systems and technology at the high school? I thought that was cut. That's the one with the hands-on view of the real world. Content areas include economic systems, supply and demand, business operations, ownership, record keeping, budgeting, banking, general marketing. Is that a good course?
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize you were reading each and every facet of it.
I wanted it on the official record.
It's fine.
Business systems and technology? Okay.
All right. Great. Are there any comments from the public? Any comments from the committee?
Well done.
I have no comment since I'm here.
Mr. Ratke.
Mr. Ratkin.
Because I'm glad to hear about study halls, hopefully, because Ian has 3 in one day, and then he has 0 other days. So it's really kind of wacky. But, so.
Yeah, that's something that we want to look at closely.
The only other comment I have, it's a question. You guys are going to look at the state requirements for letting kids out if they have their
Yes, I will look into that.
credits?
Yeah.
So what we want going away from this meeting is emailed to the committee the revised course selection guide, and if we can get that approved at the end of the month, that would be great. And then we want to investigate this parent sign-off for early school dismissal, but of course with the credit discussion, that's still in flux. But that's just for moving ahead. And until then...
Connor, may I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
When we do the sample for you of the whole study hall idea and the kids going to tutoring or being in a study hall if they're not required to do tutoring, do you mind if we also, I know I'm giving myself more work, but I personally really find value in the idea of kids going to a Keystone Prep course and having that be something that is required. Would you be okay if we made a sample of
Absolutely.
doing that also, as opposed to only just doing them going to tutoring?
I'm fine with it. I don't know if I'm sure the other committee members probably are if it's just an idea.
I'm
to
just thinking
investigate.
that it might be a little bit
think
more
it's
feasible
viable.
with the
They have to
people
pass.
that we have.
Any way we could give students better opportunities in terms of classes, preparation for exams,
Well, and we're
SATs.
required by the state to do remediation anyway, so I think it would be nice if we could have something that was
Yeah.
in their schedule that said, here's where you have to go, instead of they have a study hall and then.
I think something
They
you'll
have
see from the board and the committee, any way we could do more with what we have is welcome. That's my thought at least. And on that note, the meeting is adjourned at 7 p.m. on the dot.